So nice to be here. Very happy to be at China Connect. My name is William Bean. I've been doing tech investment for the last 20 years. 11 years as an equity research analyst, a stock analyst covering tech and internet, both in Asia, then the US, then back to Asia with Deutsche Bank. I was the top ranked internet analyst in Asia. Started covering China internet in 2004, so quite a while ago. So if you think about the market capitalization, the total value of all the internet companies in China, when I started covering the industry, it was $3 billion. By March 2007, is that right? 2007 when I left, the capitalization was at $18 billion. And now we're somewhere around $1 trillion. So I probably should have just quit my job and put my money in Tencent stock. But unfortunately I didn't, so here I am now. Yeah, so I switched from being equity research analyst to a VC, which is not a normal thing. You don't see people do that. I had no operating experience, I had no investing experience. But somebody had the idea to give us some money, so we jumped off the cliff. So my counterpart on the banking side got $50 million from Sun San, the CEO of SoftBank. And we did SoftBank China India. I think it's the 12th or 13th SoftBank-backed fund. So I ran China for SoftBank for 4 years. Do you guys know who SoftBank is? Okay, mostly they own about 30–40% of Alibaba Group. They own Sprint in the US and SoftBank Telecom in Japan. And then we're good? Okay, awesome. So after that, we didn't do a second fund, and I moved over to Singtel Innovate, the corporate VC arm of Singtel Group. They have 450 million mobile subscribers in Southeast Asia, and we had a $250 million fund. It was 3 founding MDs. We started about 6 years ago, and it's now one of the top 10 corporate VC firms in the world. And I left 2 years ago because they don't give out profit share. They don't give out carried interest. But that experience bridging between corporates and startups is what I'm going to talk about today. So lessons learned from China. Okay, so this is just to put things in context. So this is 2015, venture capital investment by region. So Europe's about 12.5 billion US dollars in 2015. US was 72 billion. China was 60 billion in VC investment. So 4.5 times Europe combined. Now, both China and US went down last year. I don't know what happened in Europe. But the amount of money being invested in Chinese startups is massive. The Chinese government recently, and this is mostly private money, some government money, but the Chinese government recently announced that they were going to put another 250 billion US dollars into VCs. Not a very good idea, but there's no shortage of money in China. So what can we learn from China? And what can we take from China to Europe? So the first thing is social commerce. If you go on Facebook, at least right now, you can't buy anything. But if you go into WeChat or most of the social networks in China, anything that you can see, you can basically buy. We saw earlier today, you can buy the attention of somebody playing the piano. But you can also buy the potato chips that person is eating. You can buy a Lamborghini on WeChat. You can buy just about everything. So how is China different? Well, Facebook is a closed platform. It's a media. So if you want anybody to see anything on Facebook, you have to pay Facebook. They started off as an open platform, now it's a closed platform. And that's why they're making so much money. WeChat, at least for the moment, is open. It's actually slowly shutting, but it's open. So if I share something and it's high quality content, other people will be able to see it without me having to pay Tencent. It's a little bit like Twitter, and that your feed is not filtered through an algorithm. So when you have an open platform, content actually matters. And if you have great content and good data, you can build a business on that. And that's what we've done for a number of startups and brands. So in US and Western Europe, people specialize in helping startups, like 500 startups, they specialize in helping people use cash effectively to get users. What we do for China and Southeast Asia is we help companies and corporates get users without paying any money, using high quality content. So it's very, very user-centric. If you annoy your user, you're gonna lose money. So the idea is to educate, to get your users to love you. So we acquire the user, then we engage them, and then we try and retain them. The longer that you can retain them, the more money you make. It's pretty simple. I'll give you a short case. Neonan went through our accelerator program a couple years ago. They are a platform for men's health and fitness. So think about it like a little bit of a mix between FHM, Maxim, and men's fitness or men's health. So they started off with video, and they launched a number of video programs that are both educational and entertaining. So they were a top 10 media channel on Youku, not owned by Youku. In about a year, they did about 2.3 billion video views without spending any money. And once Youku put in followers, they started to build up a following. So they teach young men in China how to be better men. So think about it like this. If you're a young man in China, you don't have brothers, you don't have uncles, you don't have cousins. One-child policy, nobody to ask of. I mean, I guess you can ask your father, but you probably don't want to ask your father some of the certain things like, how do I date girls? Or what should I buy? What gadgets should I buy? So we educate young men. We give them very high-quality content. We tell them how to take care of themselves, how to be healthy. So it's engaging content. And these videos are getting 1, 2, 3 million views per video. So not only educational, but there's also, it's for young men. So there's lots of scantily clad women in the workout videos. So what do the numbers look like? This is from about a year ago. But the idea here was we start off with video, getting users without paying for them. For each video, on average, at this time, we were getting about 500,000 views without spending money. Based on that, we drove about 500,000 WeChat followers, adding about 2,000 a day. To put this into context, most brands spend between $3 and $10 to acquire each WeChat follower. Real WeChat followers. There's also fake followers, but to get a real WeChat follower, it generally costs between $3 and as high as $10. So we're getting 2,000 a day. Pretty good for a startup that never raised very much money. The fans get involved, they post, and the idea is that we're, through this platform, driving 2,000 downloads per day for our app without spending any money. And in China, it's a pay-to-play market, just like in the US and Europe on Facebook. No one will ever see your app, no one ever will see your product, no matter how good it is, unless you pay. But we are circumventing that with content. The key thing is to use that content to get the users. And then for now, we're driving a lot of those users into WeChat. So a lot of people talked about WeChat earlier today, I think. Without spending any money, Neonan got 1.4 million users over the last 2 years. And we engage those users with a different type of content. So there's one type of content that's shared and is very attractive to drive a follower. But once you have a follower, you use different type of content to engage that follower, make sure that follower loves you, make sure that follower stays. Once we have the followers, what we do is we try and make sure that they come back day after day with very good content, with gamification features. And then the key thing here is we do not make money on advertising. It's impossible, pretty much impossible for startups to make money on advertising in China because the Chinese market is dominated by Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. It's a closed loop system. So you don't have a long tail of publishers that are able to monetize. The way we monetize in China is actually by selling things. So there's 2 ways to make money in China. One is entertainment, games, and it's the largest game market in the world. The other is e-commerce. So after we have the trust of these young men, we sell them all sorts of stuff. So we got yoga mats, we've got protein powder, we've got anything that we can think of, and we are constantly A/B testing the product and the message. I don't know their most current sales, but I think they're doing about $250,000 US a month with zero spend on marketing. Okay, so this is after about 2 months in. And they had their 500,000 fans on WeChat. When you have high quality content and your users are not fake, like most large corporates and multinationals, their users are mostly fake because they pay agencies to acquire them, and it's very difficult to buy a user. So with a high quality user base, I would say 85% of our users are real, maybe only 15% fake. We were getting 10% conversion daily to the content. So very, very, very sticky content. Of the people who read our content, 5% actually visit our store. And of the people who visit the store, 2 months in, 3% are purchasing. So we're getting a 0.3, 0.4% conversion of follower to sale each month. Okay, so think about that. Anybody who's ever touched your brand that you didn't piss off, they follow you, and then without spending any money, you can convert them to a sale. We're getting as high as 6% monthly conversion of follower to purchase with no marketing spend. Now, at this point, we're on actually 17 different social networks, helping our companies, because WeChat has gotten a lot more difficult recently. But still, WeChat is once you have their trust, WeChat's currently one of the easiest ways to get a purchase, because it's one click, put in your code, and done. It's a zero drag purchase. So Facebook, you're going to see it in Europe soon, because Facebook's product roadmap is a giant WeChat clone. They went from platform where they had coins and you could actually make money on Facebook to a media. But now they're going back and they're going to try and introduce a platform where you can purchase. So think about it like Oreo or McDonald's or some of these companies. Oreo has 42 million followers on this one account. And if they can convert 3, 4, 5% of them to purchase Oreos on a monthly basis without spending any money on marketing, it can become very, very, very powerful. So I'm going to give a couple case studies on how we work with corporates, both inside China and outside of China. So if you think about corporates and startups very, very rarely get along. In the history of startups, how many have actually done a partnership with a corporate? Very few. Things are changing. About 30% of venture capital now comes from corporate venture capital firms. But startups generally do not get along with corporates. Why? Well, corporates are slow. They have an RFP. Usually takes them a year to figure out what they want to do and another year to do it. Innovation is generally not in their KPI matrix. So most people have a goal for the year, and if they achieve it, great. If they don't achieve it, usually they get fired. Well, innovation is usually not in that matrix. It's very difficult to measure. And if it's successful, there's no upside. You don't get a bonus for doing innovation. But if it fails, usually you get fired because it's quite embarrassing when something goes awry, especially with a small startup. And most startups, they're not companies. A startup is an idea in search of repeatability and scalability. So you have to fail and fail and fail and fail in order to succeed. And most corporates are not designed, they're not structured for failure. If you've got 100 years of brand equity, you don't want to risk it on trying something that will probably fail the first 3 times. Also, corporates and startups generally have different goals. A startup wants to solve a problem for their users. They want to be loved. They want to build something that people will come back to day after day. And most corporates, when it comes down to it, their KPIs are, let's sell more stuff. And oftentimes those goals are different. Startups are fast. It's not that startups are good, but they have to be fast. Why? Because they generally don't get enough capital to last for longer than a year. So they have to be fast. And the second problem with startups is half the time they're half-baked. Most corporates don't know whether a startup PowerPoint presentation is vapor or real. And half the time it's a little bit of real and a little bit vapor. So startups' ideas are very difficult to turn into reality, and most corporates don't know which is reality and which is fake or which is half-baked. And then finally, startups have a laser-like focus. They don't have time to do an RFP. They don't have time to fill out 7,000 different forms. They don't have 3 years of financial results to get on a vendor list for a corporate. They're very, very focused, and oftentimes if you connect a corporate to a startup, the effect will be that the corporate kills the startup because it floods them in a bunch of crap. So we started a startup innovation program 4 years ago. The first 2 years were basically littered with complete failures. But starting about 2.5 years ago, we started to get some traction. I'll give you a couple cases. So Visa has something called Visa Everywhere. We run China for them. They just kicked off their Europe initiative at Mobile World Congress a couple days ago. And what they do is they put up money and they put out their problems publicly. They call them challenges, but actually really what they are is problems. And this is what we focus on. Corporates give out 2, 3, 4 specific problems that a startup's existing platform, product, or service can solve. So one of Visa's problems, and this is public, is that when Chinese people travel outside of China, they have a credit card and it says Union Pay and Visa on it. So Union Pay is sort of the local credit card union, and Visa's Visa. And when Chinese shop in France, they always pick Union Pay, which means because that Union Pay, they know they're going to get a better exchange rate. Visa's bank rates with their partner banks are higher than Union Pay's. What the consumer doesn't know is that Visa gets points, they have discounts, and they have all sorts of other benefits, price protection that Union Pay doesn't have. But as a result, Visa doesn't make any money on Chinese consumers, or very little money on Chinese consumers traveling abroad. So we matched them with a company, actually several companies, but I'll give you this one, Rikai Labs. And the solution was not something that a normal agency would normally come up with. Rikai Labs provides one-on-one language learning over WeChat. So you get a teacher live one-on-one, which is very valuable in China. In China, the services for language learning one-on-one live with a Western teacher usually cost upwards of $3,000 a year. So for Visa, we're offering free lessons to the users, teaching them about how to purchase when they travel abroad. So how do you pay the VAT? And you should use Visa at the checkout. And so this is kind of what it looks like. The reason why it's special is that we have a chatbot who helps the teacher, so that one teacher can give a one-on-one lesson to 10 people at the same time, bringing down the price. So they're millions, I don't know. But second one, I have about 1 minute and 20 seconds left. So the second challenge is AXA. It's an insurance company. And their challenge is that people get health benefits from their insurance, but they don't know where to go. They don't know which doctors are good. Most of the Chinese people actually don't use their insurance because they don't know how it works. So we built a platform, it's called Care Voice, where we educate Chinese insured on how to best leverage their insurance, which doctors and hospitals to visit. We will actually tell you that a doctor in a hospital is bad, whereas most of the other platforms in China get paid by the doctors and hospitals. And we started with one platform, educational platform, helping them with figuring out which hospital and doctor to go to. Since then, we've rolled out to 15,000 of their users to start, and AXA signed on for another 3 services. So win for the startup, win for the corporate. I'm going to skip this one. And whoops. So just to end, we run innovation for these companies in China. Some of them are recognizable, a couple of them are French. And happy to chat. In terms of who we are, we're the Accelerator VC. We invest through our accelerator programs in hardware, biotech, food, and I run internet. So with that, I'll leave it to, yeah, I'm done, Normandy.